I'm really excited about this clock because I can't tell time. And I'm totally serious. I'm not being self-deprecating. I have a learning disability called dyscalculia, where I have no concept of time or distance. That's why I'm a terrible driver. So I was really stressed out about being the moderator and talking for an hour and then being oh, sorry. Thought it was 5 minutes. Anyway, so unfiltered you. There's this thing that happens when you come to orientation at Facebook where they tell you to bring your authentic self to work. It's on a sticker and it's on a poster and it's everywhere and you're cool, okay. But a lot of the time, if you're, I think anyone who's not a man or a white man, you also think, well, that's great in theory, but that doesn't apply to me because you can't bring your authentic self anywhere. And for people who are women or people of color or queer people or people with disabilities or anyone who's felt different, bringing your authentic self to work feels like a disaster. Because it's ugh, really someone wants to hear about how I'm depressed, and so if I work too much, shit could go off the rails? No. I don't bring that part of myself to work. I tell coworkers who I really care about and really trust, hey, I'm going to leave early and go work out because I'm starting to feel really dark. Or if it gets really bad, I'll tell my boss, who's right there. And we'll get to that a little bit later. But being your unfiltered self and bringing your whole self to work, for a lot of people, it comes with an asterisk and it comes with this sense of this massive risk. But the thing is that if we did bring our authentic selves to work and if we were unfiltered, that would be what inclusivity looked like. That would mean that people didn't feel like they were taking a risk when they were being themselves, and they didn't feel like they were leaving part of themselves at home. And if we're going to tell people that they're invited to the table, but then tell them that they need to wear a costume to come to the party, I mean, a costume party and a dinner party are not the same thing. So what if we actually were unfiltered and said the things that we're scared to say, and said the things that we felt we had to cover up? We're going to try it out. It might be weird. But we're going to leave time for questions. So, don't spend the whole time thinking about your question, but if you have a question, there will be a chance to ask it. So, without further ado, I'm not going to introduce anyone. I'm going to let them introduce themselves. And in their introduction, answer the question, how do you or how have you filtered yourself? And what are you doing about it?
Okay. Hi, I'm Lauren Rodwell. I work at Instagram. I work on the brand team there. And how do I filter myself? I'll tell you why. For as long as I can remember, up until recently, in the last 2 years, I have filtered myself so you all would know I was a black woman. And reasons being, if I'm black, I'm not smart. If I'm black, I'm not as pretty as a white woman. If I'm black, I'm not as pretty as anybody. If I'm black, you're allowed to treat me with disrespect. These are things that I believe to be true consciously and subconsciously my whole life. Proven out in cases where my white friends would go to the side and talk to themselves and come back to me and say, why are your knees darker colored? Does that mean you're a different human? That shit hurts. It really hurts. So imagine you grow up and you carry that out with you and you grow up with it and you come into a work environment where there's people of all types and in the back of your mind you have this thought, well, I'm black, and people associate certain things with that. And so my filtering turns into, how can I sound like the woman from LA sitting next to me who has blonde hair and blue eyes? How can I change my voice? How can I use the words that she uses? How can, when we talk about music, I not mention that, yeah, I know a lot of Jay-Z songs by heart? Because then they'll assume she only listens to rap music. How can I just deny I know rap music at all and say, oh, I actually love this country music artist? It also shows up in more detrimental ways to my work is chasing perfectionism. There's just a direct correlation to that. It's like I'm not allowed to slip. The moment I slip, it's not because I'm maybe doing too much or need some more education, it's because I'm black. If I don't show up and have all the answers in the meeting, well, the black girl didn't have the answers. So I'll work a 16-hour day and no one knows it just so I can be so perfect in a meeting or have all of the answers. And that wears on you. You also can never have all the answers. If you think you do, that's a very limited mindset. And so that's how my filtering shows up. Chasing things I shouldn't chase, hiding who I am, to a point where at one point I wouldn't wear bright lipstick because already I'm a little taller, I'm black, I have an afro, you're gonna see me. If I wear black or bright lipstick, people think, oh, she must want to be in a rap video. No, I'm not a pop star. So all of those things I carried with me for a while. And the change really came, I think, in showing up in my work. And that gave way to me being able to show up personally and claim that, yes, I'm an African-American woman with a deep history of being hated and also being loved. And I will bring all that to the table because that is my value. And so much more. So that's the personal change. Professional change, actually getting feedback from a few managers year after year that I lacked empathy. And that while my skill set was excellent, the way I presented myself and my expectations of others was just not human. And what I realized after going to some therapy, everyone should do therapy, it's amazing, is that you've heard it before, if you don't love yourself, you don't have a fucking idea how to love somebody else, right? And so if I'm at work trying to be this leader in the room and I have no empathy for myself, I will not have it for the person sitting next to me. And that was showing up in how I led a team and wanting to be right and not realizing I am wrong. I do not have all the answers. There are experts in the room that are around me that I should call on to have the answers. And so getting that feedback, I think I got it 5 years ago, and then I got it again about a year and a half ago. And I knew this has to stop. And me shows up, and it's like, no, I don't know anything about data analytics. And I had to admit that to my boss, who then said to me, I hired you expecting that you would have a bit more knowledge than you do. It stung, it stung, it stung. But I did not die, I did not bleed. And you know what I did? I buddied up with my analyst. And I made him sit with me at least once a week, one-on-ones, and talk me through different strategies, what should I look at, what I shouldn't look at, take me through old case studies. And now we are a year later, and his evaluation of me is like, Lauren has a great handle of data analytics. And so, actually, another example is one of my creative leads. I was a bit overbearing with work. Maud and I worked together, and I had a lot of opinions that I didn't have to have. I had a partner right next to me. Getting that feedback is like, you don't have to have all the answers. I took a step back and I didn't, and instead I was able to, I think, open a conversation where we could talk and I could help her be the best she needed to be, and allowed me to go into the role that I needed to be. And all of that was when I took this filtering off, when I was like, I am what I am. I am starting to love myself more. I won't let that get in the way of what I want to get done, and this is me. And that's my story.
So, can you guys hear me? Yeah. So my story about filtering myself is I didn't know how to show up in an authentic way because I hadn't done the work on myself to really understand who I was and what my purpose was and what would make me happy. So just to go way back, my family and I immigrated from Taiwan to the United States in 1982. And I think anybody who is the child of immigrants or who's an immigrant themselves can identify a little bit with this responsibility that comes with that. So knowing that my parents gave up their family and their friends so that they could bring my sisters and I to the United States and have better opportunities and hopefully be successful, that is something that you sort of carry as a responsibility. And for me, that manifested in this is also part of Asian culture. You have to be super successful. What does success mean? It's not just being the best and working the hardest, but you have to be the highest achieving and you have to make the most money. And I remember, even when I was a little kid, I think I told my parents once, they were like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I said, the President of the United States. And my mom thought about it for a second and was like, the president doesn't actually make a lot of salary. So she was like, you should just consider that as you're like planning your future. So, not a touchy-feely family, not like really emphasizing like, who are you? Who do you discover your inner self? Not that kind of family. So I think I always even felt like my tiny ancestors sitting on my shoulders like, don't fuck up, don't let us down. And so when I didn't become a surgeon and I didn't become a lawyer and I entered the world of advertising, I was just like constantly getting after it. I just felt like I had to be the best. I had to prove myself all the time. And this resulted in like 0 work-life balance, first one in, last one out for years. And then, I was a producer, so I would go on set and travel with all men all year round. And I started to like feel like I had to fit in with the guys to be considered a successful producer so that people would want to travel with me and think that I was cool. And like, I think I actually got in a fight with an ex-boyfriend because he hated how much I called him dude because I just started talking like a guy. So anyway, about 10 years ago, I found myself so unhappy. And I didn't know why I felt so unhappy. Like, I was healthy, I had a good job, like, there was really nothing for me to complain about, but I felt so disconnected from everyone around me and so disconnected from myself that I ended up sort of like taking one of those like really cliche soul spiritual journeys. And it's cliche for a reason because it kind of works, like yoga was my gateway drug to spirituality, but I started with yoga and therapy and meditation. I went to India, I checked myself into an ashram, and I really started to do the work to try to understand, like, who am I? Who is the authentic choice? How do I want to show up in the world? And like, what is my purpose? Am I able to articulate that? So I did some of that work, and what I discovered about myself is that I'm a creator, I'm a spiritual person, and that one of my missions in life is to change the world. So cut to, like 2 years later, I'm working at Venables Bell and Partners, and I decide that I want to make a film about immigration because that's something I'm really passionate about. And I talked to my mentor about it, and she was like, and I worshipped this woman because she was a producer turned filmmaker, and she was like, quit your job, you can't work at an agency and make a film, and also don't talk to anybody about this because what if it doesn't, it might not get finished, you might fail. And when I heard her say that, I was like so devastated because I really wanted to bring my true self to everybody around me, and I felt like I would have to quit my job and then, stay in silence about this thing I was working on and not be able to share that with anyone. So I decided not to take her advice, and instead, when it came time to raise the funds for the film, I went to all the production partners that I had built relationships with over 15 years. I talked to Paul Venables, who was my boss at the time, and to my surprise, everybody donated the money to raise my film. So I think my film partner and I, Emily, raised $75,000 in 8 days so that we could make it. And what that proved to me was that if I could bring my authentic self and reveal it to those around me, that authenticity would come back to me. So that was a really powerful lesson for Emily and I both to learn. That film ended up being in 27 festivals, and it won Best Doc Short 8 times that year, and it qualified for the Academy for consideration in the Academy Awards. And like, thank you. And I think that showed me too that there can be ambition and there can be achievement, but this time it was different. I was really happy about it, and I felt very connected to myself and very connected to those around me. So coming out of this film experience, I then thought, like, how can I sort of pay these learnings forward and share what I've learned with others, especially as a leader? I think that film, which was a big part of who I am, helped me get my next 2 jobs. I think that it was a big reason that Facebook was interested in me. And because I know that a big part of myself is spirituality and sharing that spirituality with others, I came to Facebook, and for a couple years I had been trying out meditation in leadership meetings with my directs, And I was afraid to bring that to Facebook because it's such a data-driven place, and it can be a bit robotic at times, I think. So like, you know, here comes hippie Joyce with with like my weird ideas and like wanting people to do tree pose in a meeting or whatever. And I was nervous about it, but we started doing it, and I practice and coach conscious leadership, which is a philosophy about leadership that revolves around how to be a good human and how you want to show up in ways that are true to yourself. And when I started bringing these things to work, I felt a really deep connection with everybody around me in a way that like, it just fosters so much closeness. And I have such candid conversations with the people on my team that we have team sessions where people cry and it's such a safe space for us to talk about, you know, what our hopes are for the future and how much we make mistakes and fail, our regrets. And I honestly feel like if I didn't bring that spiritual side of myself to work, I don't think I would be happy working at Facebook because I wouldn't be connected to who I really am. So that's my story.
Whew, my throat is so dry right now, and my name is Yakima Moffett. I'm a copywriter at Facebook, and I actually brought a little, because I, check so many boxes in terms of like what identity is. I'm a Black woman, I'm gay, I have ADHD. Like there's so much in play that like I have to think about when I walk into a workspace, and I think it goes back to being like, it's just my whole life. Like I'm a Black woman, and that means a lot of things to people, even if they've never met me. Like there's already these ideas that they have about me, and I think one thing that I noticed growing up was people rewarded me for being more quiet, or I always felt like I got, favor because I wasn't someone who was breaking rules. And I feel like I tried to sort of bring that into the working world, and I've noticed that it actually doesn't work. So it's interesting to go, okay, this is what is expected of a Black woman, and this is expected of a woman in advertising. And one piece of feedback that I get consistently, or I have gotten over the years, is that I don't speak up enough. Like I don't talk enough. And hearing that, I'd go, oh, wait a second, like I need to probably step it up and be present and say things when I think things, not all the time, not just to be talking, but because I actually have something to say and I represent a lot of different people. Yeah. Sorry, that's so short.
Wow, yeah, thank you guys all for sharing your, like my mind is spinning right now. Let's see, how do I filter myself? The original question. And what am I doing about it now? There are snippets of what everybody has said that I really relate to. I think specifically growing up, like trying to be perfect, trying to be this, always being super ambitious. Perfection, I know now as an adult, is, the enemy and is not something to strive for because it prevents me specifically from opening up in different ways. So I guess my background is art history, got into advertising kind of a little bit late actually, but via kind of graphic design. So always looked for design-driven projects and agencies to work with and for. I think that and I have a lot of great friends and we chat about this topic a lot. And I know a lot of feedback is consistently like, you're too much, you're too loud in meetings, you're too this or too that, or like trying to sort of dampen kind of what people's and women's personalities naturally are. And I never had that because I'm an introvert, I'm thoughtful, and I honestly didn't know if that had a place, and it didn't seem like it did certainly in some of the agencies that I worked at and for, because it's like, no, you have to be louder, you have to be faster, you have to be this or that to be a true leader here. And it's always been challenging. You know, I think it's probably a very relatable thing to think, is that you're not enough or not this or not that. So, cut to us on this panel right now, how I'm dealing with that. I mean, in that specific instance, I'm like, fuck it, I am what I am. Like, I'm quiet and thoughtful. I'll say what I want when I want to say it, and hopefully it'll mean something and be meaningful to my teams, my management, my leaders. If not, cool, I'm not the person for you. I just sort of came to that decision.
I don't know if I answered the bit about how I'm addressing it now.
Do you want to?
Yeah. Okay.
Go for it.
So sorry. Like, this is why I brought this. It's like, yeah. It's a lot of faces in here. I feel like as I've been in the industry longer, I've gotten a little more comfortable. Like, one question that I wrote down was, if I hadn't filtered, would I be right here right now? Which is hard to think about. But I wonder, like, if, I don't know that we're in a place yet where everyone can come to work as themselves yet. I don't think we can get there, but we're not. It feels like, as a Black woman who's now been in it for a little longer, I'm more secure and I feel a little safer being able to come to work as myself. I'm more comfortable now talking about my partner at work. I'm more comfortable being like sillier now. I'm more comfortable, actually telling people I have ADHD and like not worrying that they're gonna see me as somebody who's necessarily like unprofessional or unable to do the work. I think if you are in a position of power, you have, I don't want to say a responsibility, but maybe it is, to like do those things so that starts to be something that people expect to see in the workplace. That's it. Yeah.
I think it's so appropriate that you brought up comfort, because I think that a lot of this comes down to, obviously it's like seeing the ideal world and getting to a place where we can all be ourselves so that we can make work where people see themselves, even if those people are, don't feel like they're welcome in the world. But I think comfort and safety and acknowledging that revealing some of this stuff feels like you might lose your job. It feels like you might be less likely to get more future employment. It feels like, I was thinking about it. I was like, if I tell the story about how, I'm going to do it now. If I tell the story about how I did a project this year where I got so burnt out, I got so paranoid that I thought I needed to check myself into a mental hospital, like actually though. I'm worried that if I tell that whole story, that someone's going to be like, yeah, she was like cool, whatever, but like she's fucking crazy. And like nobody wants a liability. When you like make a movie and hire actors, like some people have higher insurance. Like if you needed to insure me, it would be expensive. I have great insurance. But the thing is, like, basically I felt like I was gonna die. And so I sent Becca a Facebook message that was like,
And I was like, you're fired.
no, I was like, hey, look, I haven't slept in like 5 days. I'm really fucking scared. And like, I either need to go home, I need to leave this edit and go home, or I need to like check myself into Cedars. And she called me and she was like, pack up your shit, go check into a nice hotel. I was staying in a creepy ass Airbnb. It was a bad idea. I thought like having a kitchen would be a form of self-care, but then it was just like, bad. She was like, pack up your shit. I'm going to call you every 5 minutes until you're like in a fancy hotel, and then we're going to see what happens. And she literally called me like every 2 minutes, actually. And I was like, I'm trying to pack. I'm okay. And she was like, I don't know. And it was true. I actually really wasn't okay. And feeling seen and feeling safe. I still feel like totally freaked out about the fact that it happened. And like, it scares the shit out of me, but the fact is that, like, it was fine. And now I feel like I can talk to her about this thing, and, like, it's okay. And I can also set boundaries that instead of being like, hey, can we, like, start a little later? Because working out just, like, makes me feel a lot more centered. I can be like, if I don't work out, something terrible might happen. Because, like, I have a chronic illness called depression, and if I don't work out a couple times a week, like, shit starts to go south. And being able to set a strong boundary that's actually based on the truth is just so much better for everyone, because I'm not, like, bullshitting around how much I love SoulCycle. I'm saying, like, this is for me. So I think that, like, talking about this stuff and talking about safety and talking about kind of the ways that we need to support the people that we work with goes so much beyond. I've been hearing the word confidence a lot. It goes so far beyond confidence. It goes so far beyond, like, succeeding into actually creating a safe environment for brilliant people who maybe don't feel that they can be totally brilliant. So now I'm, like, rambling a lot, and I think we're at our questions time.
Can I just add something?
Yes, please.
Something quickly. I think, and this might come just from being older and from experience and from having a lot of bad experiences along the way to get to this place where we're all here together. But I think it's recognizing everybody, your colleagues, your bosses, your direct reports, the person in the mailroom, the facilities people. We're all humans, and we all sort of have and function in the same way. So I think that's sort of what I've learned, and that's what enabled me to actually respond in that way to you, Maud, I think, which is, I mean, I care deeply about everybody up here and the experience that we all have. This is just a job. Like, this is a short time we're here. And, you know, I was actually kind of nervous too. And I didn't know the protocol of, like, how to handle that situation. And I remember I was, like, at dinner or something, and I was like, okay, literally every 2 minutes. And Maud was, like, literally annoyed. She was like, why are you calling me again? I'm like, because. Are you okay? Like, but I think that it's that ability to understand and empathize with our fellow kind of colleagues and people, and that's what it's all about. So I'm glad that all worked out.
Would have been a real bummer.
And that we can talk about it, though, because, you know, like, that is a part of life. Like, we all have things that we are dealing with, confronted with, experiencing that people might not know about. So I think it's just being really sort of kind and treating everybody with care and respect.
Anything else before we do some questions?
Should we do questions?
Should we do questions? All right. I see a hand. Do we? Yeah.
I'm a new transplant to the Silicon Valley, and it seems like all of you might be in that neighborhood as well. I'd love to hear a little bit how you feel like the unfiltered you and the dichotomy of the bro Silicon Valley culture works together or doesn't.
Okay, I'll give an answer. Silicon Valley is weird being a woman. I will say my very first job coming to San Francisco, I found myself I wasn't working at Facebook. It was a tech company, like a hardware tech company. And my meetings were always all men. And I was on a small little startup team, and so I was the only one doing the marketing. And when I had a few meetings, and there was always this one guy who'd be like, well, when is your boss coming? And that's when we'll start the meeting. And a few times I was like, oh, he'll be here shortly. But there was a few meetings he wasn't going to be, and he'd be like, well, I'll come back when he's here. And then, so finally I told my boss the situation. I was like, I don't know how to handle that. And he's like, tell him it's your meeting, he needs to sit down. And so I was so happy. My boss was a man. He was so supportive. And so the next time this man said this to me, and mind you, I was baffled. I had never dealt with this. I mainly worked on the East Coast, and I was like, the West Coast can be strange. And so, And I said to this man, actually, this is a marketing meeting, and I run marketing. My boss runs our business, but I run marketing. So if you want to be involved in marketing, you should have a seat. And he sat down, and we got on with the meeting. But I had to assert myself in a way I guess men understood, but I also had to assert myself for myself. It was like, show him that I'm here for this job. You can be in it or you cannot be in it.
I've also been asked in the past, how do you feel about tokenism? Being the only female in leadership or being the only person of color. And I'm fine with tokenism to a certain level. I see it as an opportunity to come in. But I feel like as a leader, what you have to do if you're the only woman in the room or if you're the only Asian person or person of color is when you have the opportunity by being there to do something about it. So you kind of have to rise to the change that needs to be made and defend the other women or the other people that may not have a voice. So if you see it happening, to try to say something and do something about it and create space where there wasn't space before.
I'm not trying to stand for my company, but I feel like they sort of have blocked me from a lot of that, weirdly. Because I do feel like it's okay for me to come in there as a woman and be listened to and be well represented. Because I actually feel like at least in my department, it feels like there's a lot of women. My department's great. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have an answer. I'm sorry.
I think, and I know we don't, this doesn't have to be the mold where we all go down and answer one specific question, but just to add on to what everybody has said, to my perspective of the Silicon Valley, it's definitely a bubble, and the male domination of it is not any different from advertising agencies that I had experienced before. And actually, I would agree with you, my personal experience at Instagram is very different and very supportive. The three main leaders, I guess, me being the ECD, our brand leader, our product marketing leader, we're all women. So it's not as acute, I feel, as my agency experience prior. So that's sort of an interesting take, I guess.
There are people beyond the hoodies. Over here.
You all kind of each touched on this, but I think as a woman of color, you feel this a little bit stronger. How can you truly find your authentic self when playing the part has kind of become second nature?
Yeah.
You know what? I don't know where I'm going with this. So just stay with me on it. I kind of feel like there is an authentic self, but I feel like there might be authentic selves where we have this super ability to walk into different rooms and be able to shape shift to work for it. And not to say that means you block parts of your identity, but you just have more to your identity than you think.
I mean, for me, my shit had to break down before I was like, what I've been doing is not going to get me there. Had it not broken down, I don't know if I would have made it through, to be honest. I would have kept going being this fake person who was guarded in my professional life and maybe a little sadder in my personal one. But just these things that I built up for myself, these masks, these facades, they broke and they weren't serving me anymore. I'm glad they broke because what I'm able to do now, the relationships I'm able to have for now, the work I put out now, I'm prouder of it. I think the work is better. I'm stronger. I'm learning again. When you chase perfectionism, you're not learning shit. So it just had to break down. But if you feel like you're not able to break through, I think for me is think about maybe the world you're missing out on. What does being your authentic self expose you to? Because you've raised a hand and said, this is me, how would you react to this? Or I don't know this, what can you teach me? You're missing out on something, so maybe test it in small ways, but it's probably stuff you're not exposing yourself to.
Back there, I saw your hand up for a while. This is really hard.
So, Yakima, I love that you
Becca, I think you had an anecdote about this, perhaps.
I did.
You can pass, though, if you want to.
Well, no. I think, yes. I've, again, through experience, through just like, and I work hard at it every day, so I don't want to say that this is easy. But more and more, I just let it out how I feel. And there was one instance, and I think Kat actually just recently wrote sort of a very provocative and interesting and resonant kind of article about this. I was frustrated, so just like tears started coming down with leaders of the, the team. And then, of course, if you really think about it, which I think about everything like too much, it made it worse because it's like, oh my God, I'm fucking crying. I'm crying. Like, fuck. And then like more. And it just like confused the situation and then I realized and I isolated, like I was just mad and there's no way to sort of express or I'm learning how to. But there has been no way for me to properly, or maybe it's not acceptable to hear anger from people. And I didn't know how to sort of channel it in the right way. So it was frustration, which was tears, but then tears mean something different to everybody in the room. Like, I'm so sad, or like, oh geez, let's call the hospital. Like, who knows what was going on in people's brains. But bring it back around to how is, it just happens. And so that's what happened. We all went home, came to work the next day. It was a different day. Kept at it, honestly. So I guess talking about not filtering, I think that was a great example of not filtering. I think my own sort of worry and concern about how it was perceived was actually more damaging than what truly happened. So that was just a lesson and just something to sort of remember. And then I think, though, these conversations, and the more we talk about it, and like reading Kat's article, I was like, oh, like she put kind of words to an emotion that I felt, and I was like, I've been in that position, but I didn't know, and I didn't know how to talk about it. So I think the more we share our experiences, the better.
We, in the production department, we just had a meeting about this the other day. It was about feeling our feelings. And I think sometimes as women, we get caught up on the fact that like, if we have emotions in the workplace, that this is like a chick thing, and that you don't want to be perceived as weak or like not strong enough to handle what's going on. And one of the things that we practice through conscious leadership is this idea that feelings are not a gender-based thing. In fact, when you recognize, if you can identify and process your feelings at work, they actually serve a really specific purpose, especially if you're in a leadership position. So if you can recognize that you feel sad and are able to process that, it usually means that it's time to let something go or to move on from something that's no longer serving its purpose. If you're feeling really pissed off, it's probably because you need to do something to defend your team or to right something that's been wrong. And so if you can look at it through the filter of feelings serve a purpose, and we need to be able to clearly identify them, try to process them within a short amount of time, and then take the action that those feelings are telling us to take, then it's not about a girl thing or a weakness thing. It's just like doing our jobs better because our feelings are an instinctive reaction to what's happening around us, and they serve a purpose.
Also, sorry, I just want to add one thing. I feel like we work with humans. Like our managers, our like coworkers, everybody's a person. And I think we often, try to hide. When I was like a brand new copywriter, I was feeling really burnt out on a project. And I remember like picking up a pen, I put it in my mouth in the wrong direction and the cap was off and I got pen on my tongue, and I just, like, that was the moment I just broke down. And I run to the bathroom so that I could hide how I was feeling. But I feel like as I've, advanced in my career, when stuff's going down, when I'm having like, family issues, if I'm just feeling out of sorts, I'm gonna tell my manager, I'm gonna talk to my art director, I'm gonna let people know where I'm at so that they can kind of adjust and figure out, how to go forward from there. Because I think you have to, otherwise it's just not helping anybody.
Yeah, I think we spend a lot of time beating ourselves up for our emotions rather than actually kind of thinking them through. I have a really hard time with this, with sort of beating myself up for feeling feelings. But like there used to be there was that Kelly Catrone book, I don't know, called "If You're Gonna Cry, Go Outside," and like fuck that. That's not like we don't have time to go outside. So just like feel it and deal with it. It's fine. Yeah. Yeah.
I'm going to be a naysayer for a second, not to bring the conversation down or anything, but I think it's also very real that we're operating in spaces where we do not control the biases that other people have about our demographics. And so if you're in an environment where your manager supports you, or you have a team that supports you, it's great. I also work in video production, which is incredibly male, and I'm a producer, and so I'm leading men who are pretty much all white men who are older than me, and it's probably the first time in their lives they have ever taken leadership from a black woman, like ever. And so like there's never a time when I'm not aware of that, and there's never a time when I'm not aware that if I seem uncertain, if I seem overwhelmed, then like there have been many instances where like it's seen as an opportunity to like leap in and take over, and it's not. I guess what I'm trying to say is I think everything that you're saying is great, and I agree with you wholeheartedly on the inside. I'm just interested to hear you talk about how you operate within that, knowing that the world does hold you to different standards. That, like, if a white guy messes up, it's not an indictment on his entire race. Whereas, like, I'm the only black woman on the entire floor, or maybe the whole building that I work in, right? So there's a different standard. And the other thing that's more positive, I'm trying to balance it, is I love, Akima, what you're talking about the superpower, and I'd love to have you all talk more about that, because I think when you are occupying multiple underrepresented demographics, code switching is a real, it's like, I don't even realize I'm doing it. It's a skill, and then also the ability to go into spaces where you are always the minority. It never looks like you. And the comfort that that gives you to go into other different spaces and the ability to like empathize. I guess what I'm saying is like, I feel like there's a counterbalance that it's not necessarily that it's bad if you, for example, Lauren, know how to adapt to people who love country music. You know, like you know how to find common ground with all these different groups. So if you all could talk about that, or maybe they say me or something.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll say with that guy who kept leaving my meetings and questioning, like, should I even run a meeting? It didn't get better with him. It didn't. But I came out of that job starting my path of being unfiltered, and I would come into a room and say, like, here's my agenda, and here are the things I don't know. And I'm really happy that you all are in the room to help me figure these things out. It's a tactic I use of empowering those around me to enrich what I'm trying to guide and get done. It is scary. And while I'm saying like, can you help me? I don't know these answers. I am thinking they're going to think I'm incompetent. They're going to like figure it out without me. They're going to go meet in secret without me. Let me tell you, those things actually don't happen. People, even if they want to hate on you, they only have so much time in the day. So they're not going to spend a lot of it hating on you. And there's a few books that talk about this, giving up power to get power. And that has been a tactic that it's working for me. It's scary. Most times I do it. And I'm trying to get comfortable with it. I don't know that I will, but I know I'm getting better results by doing it. Simple.
I'm gonna skip over the superpower thing and go for like the negative thing. It's not negative. It's just it's what it is. I was at Ag Color earlier this year, and one thing that probably the only thing I remember now is that you might not actually benefit from the changes that you make. And yes, it's gonna stay hard. It's probably gonna stay hard for a while. You're gonna be in a lot of rooms where you are the only one, but that doesn't mean that you shouldn't keep showing up and keep, being representation for the people who are not in that room, because eventually maybe there will be space for them.
That's so true. I'm still the only Black woman when I show up places, and I probably will be for the rest of my life and career. So I've kind of given up that this will get easier and better, and have found joy in other things. That's just an unfortunate way of the world right now. I mean, Trump became our president, so like, you can find joy in other places.
We're all trying really hard. But like, what else are we gonna do? Give up?
I mean, I might just here comes hippie Joyce, but sometimes when I face this, because in production, that's just reality. So many times I've been the lead producer in the room, and a director will walk in and shake everybody's hand in the room but mine, because they'll think I'm the assistant, it is the reality of that world, unfortunately. And sometimes when I am met with this, I become even more determined to I don't believe in accidents, and I try to connect with people one-on-one because it's easier for me to manage. So if there's a room full of guys that I'm working with, it's not all the men against me. I try to look at them individually and think how can I show this person what strength looks like in all of its different facets, that I can cry or be vulnerable and they'll still respect me because I'm going to do a really good job and build a relationship with them. And then also, what can they teach me through this? Because I have a lot of bias against them right now because of what I face. So, how am I dealing with it on a one-on-one basis to try to, break down some of those boundaries and not be afraid? I don't know. Maybe that's, too optimistic of an answer because it doesn't always work, but...
No, I understand what you're saying, and I think it totally makes sense. I have people go all dad on me.
Yeah.
Because they're older.
Yeah.
They're like, oh, and it's like a teaching, which I don't know if they would do if I were a man or if I were a white man.
Yeah.
Anyway, thank you.
The clock is beeping at us, so we need to stop. But let's keep talking about this outside.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks.